Good evening, afternoon or morning. Movie Cat is at the microphone, and today I'll tell you about a film where the Matrix, time travel and Groundhog Day exist simultaneously. For your attention, a fantastic thriller. Source code.
Source code is not time travel. It gives us access to a parallel reality.
And in order not to lose this channel, I recommend you to subscribe. Captain Colter Stevens, a US Army soldier, awakens in Chicago inside a train, wondering how he ended up there. He sees the girl sitting opposite for the first time. She says her name is Christina, and for some reason she knows him very well, although she calls him Sean. The captain feels sick and goes to wash himself. On the way, he sees a red-haired guy trying to return a dropped wallet to someone. In the toilet's mirror, Stevens sees a face that is completely different from his own. The documents found in his pocket in the name of Sean Fentress completely confuse Stevens. Suddenly, right at the entrance to the city, the train explodes, and unharmed Stevens awakens inside a dark and cool room, like a helicopter cockpit. A woman named Colleen Goodwin, dressed in a military uniform, greets him from the screen and asks him to find a bomb on the train. Captain Stevens is confused because his last memories are about he is fighting in Afghanistan, flying combat missions in a helicopter with his squad. He demands information about whether the squad is alive, and he also needs to call his father. Goodwin ignores all requests and sends the captain back on the train with the task to find a bomb. This time, Stevens is confident that he is inside a training simulation, so he marvels at such high-quality detail. He excludes Christina from the list of suspects immediately, since a criminal would not be placed next to him. Captain goes to check the toilet, the easiest place to hide from prying eyes while you plant the bomb, and actually he finds it there, in the ventilation panel above the sink. Confident that the examiners are watching him, Stevens asks if he should defuse the bomb or just leave it here. Having not received the expected instructions out from the air, Stevens sees a mobile phone as a detonator and heads into the carriage to prevent passengers from making the fatal call. He breaks the jaw of the guy who was just making a deal over the phone, and the train explodes again. Captain again finds himself in a helicopter seat, and in front of him on the monitor is Coordinator Goodwin. Confused Stevens demands a dialogue with the main one, and then Dr. Rutledge arrives. The scientist tells Stevens that he is not in a simple simulation, but is inside the source code created by the doctor. The human brain is capable of storing the last 8 minutes of life, even after death. Source code, summing up these memories of all passengers and employees of the train, creates a kind of virtual projection. This is not time travel, but rather some kind of parallel reality that exists for only 8 minutes. Also, at 7:48 a.m. this morning, a bomb destroyed a real train when it approached Chicago, killing numerous passengers, including a man named Sean Fentress. Sean is the best physical match for Stevens and the military, having figuratively stuffed Stevens' mind into Sean's body. Order the captain to use the allotted 8 minutes to find the bomb and also find out who planted it there. Otherwise, there will soon be a second terrorist attack. Stevens is alarmed. He asks in horror what kind of second attack they are talking about. The scientist answers the attacker will detonate a second, this time a radioactive bomb, somewhere in the center of Chicago, after which the number of victims will be millions. Stevens heads back into the train, where he gets the idea to get off the car at the nearest station. It is logical to assume that the bomber would hardly have remained in the doomed train, and Stevens, taking Christina by the arm, begins to follow the man with a suitcase who got off at the same station. Trying to prevent an explosion, Captain attacks the man and dumps the contents of the suitcase onto the ground. At this moment, a train explodes several kilometers away from them. Not believing that he was wrong in his suspicions again, Stevens wants to search the passenger again. But in the struggle, Captain falls onto the tracks and is hit by a passing train. Reporting to Goodwin and the doctor, Stevens says that at least he managed to save the girl by pulling her out of the ill-fated train. However, the creator of source code once again explains that the events in the program do not affect reality in any way. The girl died in an explosion in the morning, and saving her in fantasies is counterproductive. It is just impossible to exist beyond these 8 minutes. That is why Captain died such a ridiculous death immediately a few seconds after the train explosion. Militaries say Stevens may have armed himself on the train by taking a loaded gun from an attendant's safe. However, the attempt fails and the unlucky robber is first knocked out with a taser and then handcuffed to the handrails. A minute later, the train is engulfed in an explosion. On the next dive, Stevens decides to shake out the passengers' bags to look for tools. For example, pliers, a screwdriver, wires, which a demolitionist should probably have. At the same time, he asks Christina to search the internet for information about his fictional friend, Captain Colter Stevens, who is fighting in Afghanistan. Stevens only managed to search one person and therefore did not achieve any results, but during this time Christina finds out that Colter Stevens died on duty 2 months ago. In such conditions, Goodwin and the doctor can no longer hide the truth as much as they want. They have to admit Stevens' body, pulled out of the crashed helicopter, is in a medical capsule in a deep coma and only his brain emits weak activity, which is however enough to download the captain's personality into the source code. Stevens is connected to a life support program, and the helicopter cabin in which the captain is located is just his fantasy, designed to put everything in order. Stevens is angry because for him one death is enough, and the doctor promises to disconnect him from the device if the mission is successfully completed. In addition to this condition, there are 2 more million Chicagoans who will die if he fails, as well as Christina, whom Stevens desperately wants to save. So the captain agrees to help and he dives in the source code again and again. Experience helps him act smoothly in the first minutes. He opens the attendant's compartment, takes a pistol from the safe, then goes to the toilet. He has not yet tried to defuse the bomb, but he is lucky and disconnecting the mobile phone from the structure does not provoke detonation. There is only one number in the phone's inbox and Stevens calls back. The sound comes from outside the train, where at the station, a red-haired guy hands the suspect a forgotten wallet. Stevens goes to him and sees the same wallet, with documents in the name of Derek Frost on the floor. To begin the pursuit, Stevens has to jump out of the train while it is moving. Having caught up with Frost, he assumes that he is the weary bomber and he allegedly forgot the wallet so that he would be considered dead along with the other passengers. Frost, surprised how the unknown person knows so much, decides not to answer anymore and opens the van door. There is a huge bomb using radioactive elements, taking into account the presence of a Geiger counter in the car. At this moment, Christina comes running into the parking lot, and the bomber, seeing that Stevens is distracted, shoots first at him and then at the girl. Frost gets behind the wheel, dials a number and the train explodes. He probably prudently connected the second detonator. Stevens tells the command the name of the bomber as well as the license plate number of the van in which Frost is transporting the explosives. So the special forces quickly arrest the bomber. Stevens, who has completed the task brilliantly, asks Goodwin for a favor. Before he leaves the program, that is, dies, she must give him a chance to save Christina and the passengers of the train by sending him there one more time. He is confident that he can do this despite the arguments of the source code's creator that the program is only a short parallel reality woven from memories and has no influence on the real world. Goodwin, unlike the captain, knows that he will never gain freedom. Stevens is the only person who has been linked successfully to the source code, and the military will never let him die voluntarily. Stevens will have his memory erased and sent on a new mission. Goodwin, a Stevens sympathizer, defies the chief's orders and sends Captain back onto the train, 8 minutes before the explosion. Using information from previous dives, Stevens disarms both detonators on the bomb, steals the attendant's handcuffs, and cuts Frost to the railing. Naturally, by disarming the demolitionist and taking away his phone, Frost even cries from disappointment, powerlessness and lack of understanding of how he was figured out so quickly. The train is saved, but Stevens has only a minute to live, and in his last seconds he kisses Christina. Goodwin, risking being court-martialed, turns off the life support system. The captain's brain dies, but his mind remains in Sean's body. Despite Dr. Rutledge's claims, through his actions in source code, Stevens has created a new timeline in which he can live as Sean and date Christina. In the captain's new timeline, it's only 8 AM, and here he sends Goodwin an email with evidence that they were the ones who prevented the failed terrorist attack reported on the news. Stevens writes that Dr. Rutledge created not an 8-minute simulation, but a whole new world. At the same time, in this new timeline, Dr. Rutledge assures some military official That source code is a unique way of fighting terrorists, and someday they will have an opportunity to prove it. It means that in this new world, if a terrorist attack occurs, the local Stevens will undertake to prevent it, and through his actions, he will create a third branch where the terrorist attack was prevented, and so on, ad infinitum. Thank you for watching, and if you could make a new reality out of an ordinary simulation, what game would you choose? Don't forget to hit the thumbs up and subscribe please if you haven't already.